Okay, thank you very much for coming. My name is Marty Townsend, and I'm the chair of the Community Representation Initiative for Red Hill. And we're here today to talk about new contamination that's been found in the Navy water lines. We received 2 lab results from households on Hickam Base, Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, that show PFAS is now contaminating the tap water. This is in addition to the jet fuel that was released and mixed with the chlorine to make a new disinfection byproducts that are highly cancerous and highly harmful to human health. And in addition, we are now seeing results of what are called forever chemicals. These are highly toxic, highly cancerous chemicals that do not break down easily in the environment, and they are now showing up in the tap water for people who live on the Navy water lines. This is both military families, military dependents, as well as civilians who are living on former military lands. And so the Community Representation Initiative is asking for people to not use the water if you're living on the Navy water lines, if your business is on the Navy water lines. We highly recommend that you find alternate sources of water because this is a horrible toxic soup that people are trying to survive in, and the water is a significant source of problem. And unfortunately, the Navy has refused to be transparent about its use of PFAS and its monitoring of PFAS. And so we have very little information. We do know that there have been 2 recent releases of firefighting foam, which uses PFAS as one of its components. These releases were at the Red Hill facility and resulted in more than 5,000 gallons of a concentrate of firefighting foam leaking into the ground. And at the time that they were doing the remediation of the soil around those leaks, the level of contamination was immense. It was 200,000 parts per trillion, which is more than 1 million times more than the recommended amount or the level considered allowable by the EPA. And so it's the contamination levels are extreme. The PFAS that we are now detecting at homes on Hickam don't appear to be related to that release in 2020 and 2022. And so we are concerned that there's actually more PFAS in the environment than we are aware of, and that they are high. As you can see from the reports, one household has a level of PFBA, which is one form of PFAS, at 2.3 parts per trillion, which is more than double what the EPA considers a allowable limit in that regard. So the contamination is bad, and it is likely to get worse before it gets better. And people need to take action now to protect themselves. And we call on the Navy to provide alternate water for everyone on the Navy water lines and to immediately begin cleaning up as best as possible. One of the scariest things about the PFAS forever chemicals is that there is no known technology for cleaning them up right now. But we are hopeful that as the science in this area improves, that we will be able to figure out a way to clean it up. We have hopefully several years before the contamination left from the 2020 and 2022 releases of firefighting foam before they reach the aquifer. And so hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to clean it up before that happens. And yes, thank you very much. I would like to introduce Kainoa Azama, who also has a few words to say.
Alhamay Kako. Sorry, been a while since it's been going through these. But when it comes to this whole issue with the Navy, the one thing that I will say is there needs to be accountability. When we look at the current relationship that the Navy's had with our respective communities, and the recognition that, every time PFAS has been brought up with the CRI, at least in my experience and my observations, it's been the understanding that, oh, well, that's beyond the scope of the agreement. But when did basic needs for life, not only for ourselves, but for all of life, a basic fundamental need for the planet, be limited, where we find ourselves limited to the legal agreements that have been made? The Navy, as well as anybody, no one is exempt from the responsibility to assure clean water. So echoing, what Marty had shared too, the Navy has a responsibility to be accountable to provide clean water to the individuals that have been impacted, to look into to provide alternative water testing too. The other thing I'll share is that it has an accountability to our community to assure that there's transparency in our current water quality conditions, not just with the jet fuel, but with the PFAS included, as well as an accountability to remediate it to the point, as we know, time and time again, when it comes to the age of our kupuna, vai is wealth. We valued water. We supported water. We allowed for the caretaking of clean water. It's a spiritual need. It's a physical need. It's a necessity, again, to the fundamental aspects of life. So we should be really pushing when it comes to the Navy and when it comes to all, that the accountability to assuring clean water for the current generations, as well as the generations to come, is assured and worked towards. The other thing that I'll share too is when it comes to this whole notion, again, back to the whole idea of accountability. When it comes to how the relationship has been with even our elected officials, giving rewards to military officials, and we still haven't even seen the restoration of our water quality to where it was previously, prior to these contaminations. Here we are in a situation where it's almost like our own officials are rewarding ecocide for an issue that has yet to be resolved. So when it comes to the call out, when it comes to the demands, that's really what it comes down to, is the accountability and the recognition that there's a responsibility by the Navy to go beyond the scopes of the agreements, because at the end of the day, what the community asks and recognizes is that water is a fundamental aspect to life. There's no legal agreement that should limit us to our own responsibility to assure clean water for generations to come, and not only for the humans. It's not like the plants and the dogs don't need water too. So that's what it comes down to, is again recognizing that we all have a responsibility to assure clean water, transparency in the process to meet that assurance, and in the process of inclusion to ensure that we're meaningfully working together to ensure that there is clean water for ourselves and for the generations to come. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. I would just add that I feel that it's important to note that this is a scary time to live in. I think that Hawaii has paid the ultimate price for America's war readiness, our public health, the health of our environment, our water, our most precious resource. They've all been sacrificed in the name of war readiness, and this is a penalty that our children and grandchildren will be paying for years to come. And we need to do whatever we can to make sure that we can at least stop PFAS from spreading, and then clean it up to the extent that's possible, and then realign our expectations for how we are going to use water and rely on water on Oahu, because the contamination is going to be so significant. And now we're open for questions, if you have any.
What's been the reaction from the EPA or DOH or Navy to this test? Have you talked to them at all?
No, they have not responded to anything. So there's a meeting tonight of open house, and so maybe there'll be some reaction there. But there's the Community Representation Initiative meeting tomorrow, which unfortunately the Navy and the EPA are not attending. In the past, the Navy has refused to answer questions around PFAS and said that it's not something that the CRI is has a right to ask questions about, when the whole purpose of the CRI is set up to help protect the future of water supply.
So the EPA or DH hasn't responded to this either?
No, they haven't.
But you've sent it to them?
Just recently, yes. So maybe give them a little while.
You mentioned the chemical that was found is not believed to be directly connected to the AFFF that's been being released since 2020. What could it be from?
PFAS chemicals are used in a wide variety of things, waterproofing, cleaning supplies. The military uses it extensively, and so it could be from any number of things. And this is part of the reason why we need the Navy to be a partner in the investigation and solution finding. They need to be completely transparent about all the kinds of PFAS that have been used and where, so that we can engage in that investigatory process and figure out how we solve this problem.
How were these results detected? And do you know if the Navy is doing
The Navy is not currently monitoring for PFAS, as far as I know. These two detections were, residents who no longer trust the Navy or the EPA collected their own samples from their homes and sent them in to be analyzed at their own cost. And the CRI has been fundraising to help purchase these lab kits, test kits, to allow people to test their own water to find out, whether PFAS is present at their tap.
This cyclopure, it's not an expensive test, right? So
It's about $80 per test. And anyone can do it. You can order the test directly from this company, and there's a wide variety of other companies. But some of them are certified in testing for PFAS, and some of them are not, but are still very reliable. And then, it's out-of-pocket expense, and then you have test results to let you know what's in your water, at least in terms of PFAS. Right, that's part of the challenge in doing this. Right, we can't just test the water and find out everything that's in it. We have to actually look for something specific. So this $80 test helps to identify PFAS contaminants.
So the Navy isn't involved in these tests?
The Navy is not involved at all in any of these test results, no.
I'm not responding for the Navy, but the PFAS that was detected, it's not regulated within the compounds, because there's a lot of different compounds in PFAS, but these particular ones are not regulated.
Right.
So do you think that the Navy this provides them wiggle room because they say, oh, it's
Yeah.
regulated?
Yes, I would say that it has been the Navy's practice to not do anything that they aren't required to do. And so the fact that the EPA only regulates 6 kinds of PFAS contaminants, and what is showing up in the water right now is not among those 6. There are thousands of different kinds of PFAS contaminants. So I think the Navy may say that I could see the Navy saying that they don't have an obligation to do anything because there's no requirement.
You mentioned it's still, I guess, theoretically a couple years away before we see the results from the AFFF trickling down into the aquifer. Could you kind of just stress the importance of the fact that you are detecting double the amount of what's allowed or what's recommended for human consumption? Is this a canary in the coal mine for what's to come?
Yes, canary in coal mine, chemical whack-a-mole. We are in serious dire straits. This is foreshadowing a much more significant problem that's coming down in a few years. This is PFAS that we're detecting that we didn't know was in the water. There was no reason to expect already that the PFAS spilled in 2020 and 2022 would be reaching the water supply. This PFAS is it's in the Navy water lines, and so it's circulating amongst all the water users there.
Have you ever tried this test outside of the Navy water line, like a municipal line, just to see what the difference is?
Yes.
Show too.
Yeah. Yes, we have. We have a resident here who has run the PFAS test on her own household water supply and found that there's no PFAS detected. Okay, since everybody's in the sun, I think we should go. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.